Politics that's brewing in Tamil Nadu this election season. Now, as the poll date approaches, remember, Tamil Nadu goes to poll on 6th of April. The two key parties, AIADMK and DMK, are in a huddle within their own camps over seat sharing with their allies. So even as we speak, a meeting is actually taking place within the AIADMK camp. Conversations are on what needs, how much they want to give to the BJP and a lot of their other allies. In fact, we're given to understand that they're likely to finalize their seat sharing soon. Now, while sources say BJP wanted a larger share of seats, and they said so because they say on ground they've increased their presence, they have the strong backing of the center and the big faces. AIADMK is considering giving them and offering them about 20 seats or even lesser. Now, there is a bit of a divide when it comes to the role BJP may play in these elections. Many say absolutely none. It's a party, it's a national party that has no resonance with the voters of Tamil Nadu. Others say that quite a bit of groundwork has been done, and so they cannot be completely discarded or disregarded, and so that's something that the AIADMK will have to think about. We're also given to understand that DMDK could get about 20 odd seats in this alliance, and then AIADMK would have a share of about 170 seats. They could perhaps they have offered, in fact, about 23 seats to the PMK. So that part pretty much is sealed and finalized. PMK has also said that they're pretty happy with what they've got. They had one demand about a reservation that they had made, and that has already been fulfilled by the government. So they're happy with even getting lower seats this time around. Now, on the other hand, the DMK Congress alliance with a few others involved as well, they are too yet to finalize all their entire seat sharing, and that is likely to take place on March 3rd. That's when the big conversation will take place. But there have been some feelers being sent from DMK's end as well about how much they really want to give to the Congress party. Even though Rahul Gandhi is in Tamil Nadu today and has been campaigning in Kerala and then Tamil Nadu very furiously over the last few days. So that part is also left. Now, I want to open up this conversation first by focusing on what AIADMK should be doing, how much should they be giving to their alliances, and if the BJP can get a bigger share. Also, I want to talk about the larger sense of whether alliances will play a key role. Now, for most people, AIADMK and DMK are the two key parties. But what about their allies? How much of a role will they play? Let's talk about that, and let's speak to our experts about that. So joining me this evening, political representatives, Kovai Sathyan, spokesperson for AIADMK, joins us this evening. Khushbu Sundar of the BJP with us this evening as well. Sumansi Raman, political analyst, will be joining us in just a bit, and T.S. Sudhir, political analyst, also joins us this evening. Mr. Sudhir, let me start off with you to just put it in perspective for our national viewers as well. You know, outside of DMK and AIADMK and how much they fight themselves, what roles will their allies really play this time around?
Well, obviously, Tamil Nadu is a land where the two Dravidian parties, the AIADMK and the DMK, have held sway for the last so many decades. So obviously, they are at the heart of the two alliances that will be fought. And all the other parties actually come around them and fight with them. The main point that will be considered when the seat sharing talks are happening as to how many seats are to be given to each ally and which are the seats to be given to each ally. What will really matter is whether those are winnable seats, or whether it will become a case of whenever the DMK is pitted against any of the minor allies of the AIADMK, the other parties, it will kind of fancy its chances better. Similarly, whether the AIADMK will fancy its chances whenever it is contesting against, say, a Congress or any of the other allies in the DMK coalition, DMK alliance. So that is something which both the NDA and the DMK-led alliance will have to consider, and that is really what will really matter. Because we have seen, for instance, as far as the Congress was concerned, in 2016, out of the 41 seats that it contested, it could win only 8. So in that sense, the strike rate was not very great. Also, they will have to see the effect of the number of seats that it has given to the PMK in other parts of Tamil Nadu, given the fact that the 10.5% reservation that they've extended to the one-year community, what kind of anti-one-year consolidation that perhaps could actually take place both in northern part of Tamil Nadu as well as in other parts. So a lot of factors will need to be put in place before they actually arrive at a decision as to how many seats are to be given. One last point, Tanvi, also the two main Dravidian parties would like to contest the lion's share of the seats themselves because they would want to command a simple majority on their own, given the fact that most of the smaller Dravidian parties are in the habit of switching sides quite too often, once every 5 years.
Yes, and absolutely. And while they may want the lion's share for themselves, it's always a battle to keep all of your allies happy, Kovai. And while you've offered, a share to the PMK, we understand the DMDK is not very happy with it, and the BJP also has growing ambitions.
But I should thank you, Tanvi, because you have done all the permutation and combinations possible in your opening speech. So what am I left with? I can't talk about
You
numbers.
can confirm or deny.
No, all I could say is yes, it's just a matter of time wherein the confirmation of the pact between AIADMK and BJP is to be announced. That's just a matter of time. It can happen by tomorrow or the day after. But being responsible to drive the coalition, as the party which is driving the coalition, it is our responsibility to ensure that the aspirations of our allies are fulfilled with right amount of justifications. Either you convince me or I convince you. There is nothing called compromise here, because they are putting their lives out and they want a fair amount of share and representation for their party. That's what they are fighting for. The onus is on us to ensure that their dreams are being fulfilled. So AIADMK is in a situation, being in the driver's seat, are able to fulfill the expectations of every party who wants to be a part of coalition. So here and there might be statements flying high and dry. That's bound to happen at this point of time. So let us let us not get into specifics of what DMK is saying out in the open and in the public. It is handled well. Our leaders who are seasoned, who are capable enough to handle these kinds of situations. All we are interested is this has to be the people are looking at this ally as a winning ally. So we have to ensure that the seat sharing and the way we take forward resonates the same in the minds of the people.
No, that's fair. But tell me this: how much does the AIADMK want to keep to itself? Now, obviously, while you said that you want to do justice to all of your allies and give them what they deserve, and irrespective of what DMDK leaders are saying publicly, you will resolve those issues. But what would be the big share that you will want to keep with yourself?
Definitely, being the leader of this ally, we'll definitely have the lion's share with us. So I would thank Mr. Sudhir for stating it open, saying that both the Dravidian parties would love to have the major lion's share, so that they can prove to the that they can form the government on their own. That would be the dream for every party who is heading the ally. So I will stick to that. I don't want to throw numbers here in the national media. I stop with my limitations. So
okay, Khushbu, let me come to you then. In an alliance where there is the big Dravidian party, then there are the smaller allies who've been there for a while, and have already proven what they can bring on the table. What is it that the BJP seems to seek? Some numbers even suggest 40 seats or 50 seats.
These are the numbers which have been thrown out by the people. Nobody from the BJP or the AIADMK have given numbers out. Both the parties have come to an understanding, and the numbers will be out in a day or two, like Mr. Kovai Sathyan said. Having said that, this is respectability, and I'm sure BJP is going to get what they rightly deserve with a lot of respect, because the kind of schemes and all the issues what BJP is in coming up to help the people of Tamil Nadu, apart from what they're doing for the country, I think people of Tamil Nadu are ready to accept BJP with open hands and an open mind and say that we are here to welcome you. So I think, and you have the Prime Minister, you have the Home Minister and the other senior leaders coming down to Tamil Nadu very often off late. So it makes it very clear that there's a very, very healthy relationship. People are open to the idea to accept them in Tamil Nadu. And yes, BJP is going to make a huge mark.
But what would have changed, Khushbu? What has changed, say, from 2019 general elections to now that makes you so confident? Because if you look at the vote share in 2019, there isn't much to suggest that BJP even matters a little bit in Tamil Nadu.
Actually, when you look at the Tamil Nadu voting pattern, when it comes to Lok Sabha elections, when it comes to the assembly elections, there's always a different pattern. people who vote for Lok Sabha election do not vote during assembly election. I mean, you saw DMK and Congress in 2014, and then you saw how it came back in 2019 for Lok Sabha elections. So the pattern changes. You wait and watch this 2016 to 2021 now, 5 long years, and people have seen that what BJP can do to the country in the last 6 years, the way they have taken up the economy, the way they have been working for the people, the way they have brought in all these schemes which helps the poor. And I think it's there for the people of Tamil Nadu to see what all our Prime Minister has been doing for the country as well as for the state. So it makes a lot of difference. 5 years is a very long time for people to think and realize as to which party is actually working for them.
Okay, Mr. Sudhir, do you have a view on this, and especially when it comes to the two national parties, the BJP and the Congress, and I don't want to put them in the same bucket because obviously the reasons for Congress and how it's being viewed is completely different. So let's first start off with BJP and if there is, enough acceptance or if the acceptance has grown since 2019.
Well, see, 2019 was in many senses a very difficult election for the NDA, given the manner in which it was completely whitewashed out of Tamil Nadu, winning just one parliamentary seat. So in that sense, the challenge for the BJP and by extension the NDA is quite huge as far as the 2021 assembly election is concerned. But this is going to be a major test for all the parties concerned, not just for the BJP. Look at the AIADMK, 10 years of anti-incumbency. The fact that they are going to fight this election for the first time without Jayalalitha, that makes the challenge bigger. Even for a party like the DMK, the first election without M. Karunanidhi at the helm of affairs, and Stalin having to prove himself, he cannot afford another 5 years in the wilderness. So in that sense, it is a high-stakes election for almost every party concerned. Yes, given the fact that there is 10 years of anti-incumbency, given the fact that the DMK-led alliance did very well in the 2019 Lok Sabha elections, and Stalin has hit the road much earlier than any of the leaders of the AIADMK, it gives the DMK definitely a head start. And in many senses, many would call this the DMK's election to lose. But the AIADMK, to its credit, by its various announcements in the last 2 to 3 weeks, has managed to kind of drop some of the advantage to itself. But whether that will be good enough to close the gap between itself and the DMK-led alliance, that remains the big question. I would still kind of wait till we know the actual candidates in each constituency to know who is pitted against whom, to actually arrive at a conclusion as to who really has the advantage in this very fascinating election that we are going to witness in Tamil Nadu.
It's going to be very fascinating indeed, and there is absolutely no doubt about it. Let me also see if I can go across to Mr. Sumant Siraman. Good evening to you, Sumant. We are talking right now about the role of the national parties as allies and if they can actually make an impact this election season, whether it's BJP or the Congress.
Both the national parties are the weak links in their alliance, right? So both the Congress and the BJP are the weaker links, which AIADMK and DMK will definitely want to exploit, in the election. Now, the number of seats that they're going to be contesting has also not been finalized. It is expected to be somewhere between 20 to 25 seats on either side, the 25 or so for the Congress and a similar number for the BJP. But I think the big concern is that this election is getting to be much closer than what was originally anticipated. The AIADMK has pulled back a lot of ground in the last, I would say, 2 to 3 weeks, particularly with a series of announcements, the waiver of cooperative farm loans, the waiver of cooperative jewel loans up to 6 sovereigns, then subsequently the 10.5% reservation for the one-year community. All of these have helped create a feeling that this election is not over or not in the bag for the DMK as yet. Yes, I still feel that the DMK Congress combined, by virtue of the alliance arithmetic, has its nose slightly in front, but certainly this election is not over. One very important point is what the attempt that the BJP is currently making to make sure that the AMMK, Shashikala's AMMK vote share adds up to the AIADMK alliance. Now, in which form it's going to happen, we don't know. But if that also happens, then I would say the whole game becomes a very, very even contest. And I sincerely get the gut feel that we are heading into a very tight finish, somewhat similar to probably what we had in 2016.
So before I get both Khushbu and Kovai to respond to this, Sumant, I've now heard this from a lot of experts, with an ear to the ground in Tamil Nadu to say things have changed, and not just in the last 3 weeks, but even in the last 1.5 years, DMK seems to have lost that ground that the other side has gained. Now, is it simply the announcements? Is it something else that seems to be working for AIADMK?
No, I think it's one person. I think that it's the chief minister's personality. He's emerged as a leader in his own right, and he has, let's face it, the last 1.5 years, he has provided governance which has been more than satisfactory. Whether it is the schemes that they've initiated, the investments that they have brought, the way they have handled COVID after a few goof ups in the first couple of months, overall, there is very little that you can actually throw at the chief minister as allegations. Of course, the corruption allegation is consistently thrown by Mr. Stalin, but so far there hasn't been any strong evidence to back it up in the public eye. And it is generally believed in Tamil Nadu that all major political parties are corrupt anyway, so it really does not carry that much of an impact. Other than that, there's very little that you can target Mr. Palaniswamy with. So he's taken care of the farmer communities quite well. He's reached out to the one-year community. Now he's tied up the alliances quite effectively, and there's been a fair amount of investment that they've attracted to the state. So, I mean, what do you say? To say that he has not done very well. So it's very difficult, and I think that single-handedly he has made, or in the last 6 months in particular, he has converted what was heading to be a landslide win for the DMK
to a close
into
match.
what is now in many people's a close match. But again, there's still a month to go. Things can still change either way.
Oh, things can still change either way. Okay, but Khushbu, one thing you must respond on, and that's the role that your party sees Shashikala and AIADMK play in this election, because there's just too much, the news that also came in, many reported that allegedly this was also part of the conversation yesterday between the two parties.
I think they've always said that what is between AIADMK and AIADMK is a personal issue, internal issue for them, and we are not going to interfere. None of us have spoken about it, and we don't think it would be right on our part to speak something which is absolutely internal for AIADMK. Having said that, I really appreciate what Mr. Sumant Raman has come up with. Yes, we see there's absolutely no scam against the ruling party or our chief minister, and at the same time, you see absolutely scam-free government for the last 6 years at the center. We have come clean. We have provided everything, whatever people could ask for. The amount of schemes that have come in, that the entire world is hailing the prime minister and saying the way he has managed COVID. Other world leaders should take a clue from the prime minister here and understand how to handle a COVID situation. And the same thing here, the way people have been appreciating the AIADMK government, especially the chief minister as well as the health minister, Mr. Vijay Bhaskar, the way they have handled COVID. I think it's really, really amazing. They've been making a mark for themselves. And people, when you go down and meet the people, they say that we don't have any claims against BJP or AIADMK. I think the alliance.
Well, I don't know whom to go to first, Khushbu. Should I get Kovai to respond to you taking a bigger credit, or should I get Mr. Sumant Raman to respond to whether he was giving the credit to the BJP or to Mr. Palaniswamy? Sumant Raman, let's start with you.
Tanvi, two quick points. With due respect to Khushbu, the feeling on the ground is the BJP is a bit of a millstone around the AIADMK's neck. And many voters. In fact, over the last few weeks, I've spoken to so many Muslim voters of the AIADMK who say, sir, I've been voting for NPR and Jayalalitha ever since I started voting. But this time I have to change my voting choice because of the BJP is in alliance with them. And I still don't want to vote for DMK. So I've heard this story, not just among Muslims, but among many others too, among Hindus too. So I think that is something which is a factor. Second point, the buzz throughout the state today is that yesterday's 3-hour discussion. Look, Mr. Amit Shah is is probably next to Mr. Narendra Modi, the head honcho of the BJP. For God's sake, he is not going to sit and haggle saying, I want 35, and then these people say, I'll give you 20. No way. Yesterday, 3 hours of discussion certainly was not only about the number of seats or which constituencies that BJP should contest. Certainly, Mr. Amit Shah would not be getting involved in the nitty-gritties of such a discussion for 3 or 3.5 hours, running past midnight. Much of the speculation is that the talk that the BJP wanted the AIADMK to work out some arrangement, wanted the AIADMK to work out some arrangement with Shashikala and Dinakaran, and that the Chief Minister was very reluctant to do so.
Yes, well, I'm sure. Yes, Khushbu, I couldn't hear you. Go ahead.
I said speculation will definitely be making rounds, and that's what every election time. And the speculations go around. You really do not know what happens within the closed doors. So let people keep speculating. We are not here to clear their speculations. We're here to fight elections with complete utmost trust and sincerity, and that's what we're going to do. As far as somebody saying that we would not vote to BJP, I think this coming 2021 is going to make it very clear the way BJP is going to make an entry into Tamil Nadu. People are going to say that. In fact, we have seen in Telangana, people said, no way BJP can make an entry, but we saw how they won the election on the local body elections. Everywhere, every part of the country, where they say that no way BJP is going to come back, we have a bigger force. And let's not forget, this is what happened in 2019. They said BJP is not going to come back. And here we are as the single largest party in the world.
Okay, so I am completely out of time, so we will have to leave it at that. But yes, I think from now till May 2nd, we will continue to have this debate and a conversation on what would be BJP's performance and the Congress party, and of course whether AIADMK wins this or DMK. The alliances are yet to be sealed. Some of the smaller allies have gotten into an agreement with AIADMK or DMK, but the larger share yet to be announced by both sides. So it's going to be very interesting, and especially when it comes to the two Dravidian parties and what role and what importance they want to give to the national parties, whether it's the BJP for AIADMK or the Congress party for DMK. Remember, even within the DMK, there is quite a bit of thought that goes that whether they should give a large share to Congress party or not. Frankly, several of the Congress allies in many other states would perhaps advise them to not do that, having seen what happened, for example, in the state of Bihar. But thank you so much to all of our panelists for joining us on this conversation.